All right, let's jump right in. When you hear the name Deuteronomy, you probably think of a long, maybe kind of dusty book of ancient laws. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most powerful and dramatic farewell speeches ever written? Seriously, this isn't just a legal text. It's a blueprint for a new nation, a passionate last-ditch plea from a dying leader.
So picture this. We're on the plains of Moab. For 40 long years, the Israelites have been wandering in the wilderness. Now, a whole new generation is standing right at the edge of the Jordan River, literally looking at the land they've been promised their whole lives. This is a massive make-or-break moment.
And that, right there, is the central question of the entire book. You see, their parents stood in this exact same spot decades ago, and they failed. They totally blew it. They got scared, they rebelled, and because of that, they were condemned to die out in the wilderness. Now it's up to their kids. They have one last shot to get it right. And their leader, Moses, the man who's led them all this time, but tragically isn't allowed to enter the land himself, is about to give them the ultimate pep talk for survival.
Now you'd think Moses would start with a bunch of new rules, right? But he doesn't. The very first thing he does is make them look backward. He hits them with a brutally honest history lesson because he knows that if they're going to move forward, they first have to understand, and I mean really understand, the mistakes of the past.
Moses basically puts two stories side by side. First, he reminds them of the total disaster at Kadesh Barnea 38 years earlier. That's when their parents' fear caused them to rebel, leading to all those years of wandering. But then, he contrasts that failure with this generation's recent, incredible victories against some seriously powerful kings. The message is crystal clear. Your parents failed because they were afraid. You have already proven you can succeed because you have faith. Don't forget that. But just as they're feeling good about those wins, Moses brings them right back down to earth. He doesn't let them get arrogant. He gives them what you might call a brutally honest performance review. He's like, let's not forget the whole golden calf incident, okay? You guys have a history of being stubborn. He's not trying to crush their spirits. He's warning them about pride. He makes it so clear that their success isn't because they're so awesome. It's because God is faithful. A vital lesson. Okay, so after that unflinching look in the mirror, Moses shifts gears. He gets to the absolute core of what needs to guide their future. And it's not just about rules. He explains that all these laws he's about to lay out, they're the terms of a relationship, a special bond he calls a covenant. And it's all built on love and loyalty.
This, right here, this is the bedrock. It's called the Shema, and it is the central prayer in Judaism. This is the prime directive for the whole nation. Notice it's not just follow the rules. It's about a complete and total devotion. Your heart, your soul, your strength, everything you've got. Every other law we're about to see is just this principle in action.
So what exactly is this covenant? Well, it's not a business deal between equals. Moses goes out of his way to tell them, look, God didn't choose you because you were the biggest or the most powerful nation. Actually, he says they were the smallest. No, God chose them out of love and to keep a promise he made to their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Their part of this deal? To respond with absolute, exclusive faithfulness.
Okay, so if the number one rule is love, how does that actually play out in the real world, in day-to-day life? Well, this is where Deuteronomy gets really practical. It becomes this radical blueprint for a whole new kind of society, where love for God and neighbor gets translated into specific laws for justice, compassion, and community.
I mean, some of these ideas for their legal system were just revolutionary for the ancient world. Judges had to be impartial, no playing favorites. Bribes were a huge no-no. To protect innocent people, you needed at least 2 witnesses to convict someone of a crime. They even set up special cities of refuge to stop revenge killings after an accidental death. And get this is brilliant. If you were caught being a false witness, you got the exact punishment you were trying to bring down on somebody else. Talk about justice.
And the blueprint goes way beyond the courtroom. It includes this incredible social safety net. Over and over, you hear this command to care for the most vulnerable people, the foreigner, the orphan, the widow. Farmers were told not to harvest the edges of their fields so the poor could come and gather food for themselves. And the motivation for all this compassion? Moses says it again and again. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. Their own painful history was supposed to fuel their empathy for others.
Finally, a huge piece of this blueprint was about forging a unique cultural identity, about becoming what the text calls a holy people, which just means set apart. This meant they had to reject the idolatry and the magic and all the other religious practices of the nations around them. Even things like dietary laws. It wasn't really about modern ideas of health. It was about creating a distinct identity, a daily, visible reminder that they were different, set apart for a special purpose.
So all of this, the history lesson, the laws, the call to be a unique nation, it all builds to this incredibly powerful climax. After laying everything out, Moses brings it all home. He puts two potential futures in front of the nation, and he spells them out in the starkest, most dramatic terms imaginable.
And he does not mince words here. The consequences are directly tied to their collective choice as a nation. If they follow the covenant, if they are obedient, they're told they'll experience blessings, prosperity, security, being leaders among nations. But if they disobey, if they turn to other gods and abandon justice, they will face curses, drought, disease, defeat in battle, and eventually being kicked out of the very land they're about to enter.
And here it is. This is Moses' final, passionate plea. You can almost hear the emotion in his voice. He puts their destiny right in their own hands. It's not just a suggestion, it's a command from a leader who loves his people like a father. He doesn't just lay out the options, he begs them. Choose life, he says, so that you and your children can flourish.
And with that choice laid bare, Moses' work is pretty much done. His speech is over, and, well, so is his life. The final chapters of Deuteronomy walk us through this peaceful but really poignant transfer of power. It's truly the end of an era.
120 years old. I mean, can you even imagine? After this incredibly difficult life, leading this difficult group of people through what the Bible calls a vast and dreadful wilderness, the text makes a point of telling us he died full of vigor. His strength was still there. It's like a final testament to the monumental life he lived right to the very end.
And this is just such a bittersweet ending to his personal story. He officially passes the leadership baton to his successor, Joshua. And then he climbs a mountain, and God gives him this panoramic view of the promised land, the land he worked his entire life to get his people to. He gets to see the dream fulfilled, but he never gets to set foot in it himself. And there, alone with God, he dies.
The book ends with this incredible eulogy. It's the final word, the ultimate tribute to what made him so unique. See, he was more than a lawgiver, more than a general. Moses was the prophet who knew God face to face. And his final words, this entire book, Deuteronomy, was his last, greatest attempt to make sure the people he loves so much would choose life. And that choice, presented so powerfully right here, has been echoing through history ever since.